These two boxes of Rallyman are jam-packed with possibilities, and it's my intention to highlight all of the interesting things you can do with them. This is Shakedown. In today's Shakedown, we're checking out some driver traits to make our NPC opponents feel a little more like the rally drivers we want them to be. The first rally game I remember playing was Colin McRae Rally on the PlayStation. I was much younger then and knew basically nothing about the world of rallying, but thoroughly enjoyed chucking cars around dirt roads, even if I wasn't very quick.
Over finish. What went wrong?
I'm still not very quick. I had to cheat to even unlock this R4 looking forward, but look at the famous faces that I'm racing against. Well, whose times I'm racing against. There's no sense that I'm up against these drivers at all. No need for me to worry about their strengths and weaknesses. No point in playing the long game in terms of strategy. And that's true of the vast majority of racing games, Rallyman included. But we can change that. Today we're going to be rallying around Newcastleton, a snow and dirt course that will make for a few interesting decisions regarding tyre choice, especially with the amount of surface changes there are, although we are pretty much starting on snow and ending on dirt, with a close to 50-50 split between the two. The cars today will be the purple R4 and a few R5s, and all of them will be driven by NPCs you may recognise, with driver traits from and inspired by those in DrWorm's NPC rules. I'm not going to be driving anything myself so that we can see how these traits work to change the way we control an NPC. This long list of driver traits allows you to tweak how an NPC can lay out their dice each turn. An NPC who is an overtake master, for example, may completely ignore a hazard on a gear die if it's used to overtake a car. On the flip side, an NPC with the wide car trait will make everyone else take a hazard for coming alongside their car in the first place. Rally drivers are often better on one particular surface, so the likes of gravel, asphalt and Snowmaster allows them to get better results from their coast dice on those surfaces, and as a result they get to place down more dice before their turn comes to a stop. The more traits you give an NPC, the more challenging they become, but include too many of them and one skilled driver starts to look very similar to another, and we lose that sense of personality that we're looking for. Instead of filling up an NPC with traits that describe an overview of their entire driving style, I've been looking into the idea of picking a single trait to pair alongside a difficulty and constructor profile to serve as a snapshot of that driver at a particular point in their career. Let's take Colin McRae as an example. In 1993 his talent was obvious, but it's his first full season in the WRC. He's still learning his craft, and so his trait is always learning. He may re-roll a die with a hazard result before placing it on a jump, for example. It might still roll a hazard, and that hazard will get doubled as per the rest of the NPC rules, but that's what happens when you're learning. Sometimes things don't work out the way you wanted. The difficulty bar has information regarding the re-rolls he'll make according to his difficulty and constructor profile. He's difficulty 6, which is also represented by the colour behind his profile image, greens being easy NPCs and reds being harder. And he's in a Subaru team that finished the season as the best of the rest. Slot this driver card behind a dashboard and you're good to see the start of Colin's career on the tabletop. A couple of years later, he's WRC champion. He's difficulty 8 now, challenging but still beatable, but in that season's best car that's even more difficult. If you know of the 1995 WRC season, you'll know why his trait is now determination. One more gear die can be re-rolled to try and get the most out of each turn. It's 1998 and his time with Subaru is coming to an end. They slip down the constructors' rankings and he drops down in difficulty 2. The story of his season is one of bad luck, and so at the end of every turn he rolls a coast die. On a hazard he draws a shortcut token. Most of the time he'll be fine, but when he isn't, he'll lose a coast die through no fault of his own. Is that too unlucky or not unlucky enough? I guess we'll have to crunch some numbers to find out. Finally, in 2001, he's once again close to winning a second championship, but if McRae is known for one thing, it's for crashing. He'll lose control whenever 3 or more hazards are rolled on gears 1 to 4, rather than the usual loss of control check on gears 2 to 4. Will it cost him a Rallyman championship? Before you get excited, I haven't got 100 rally drivers ready to go. I don't even know if this is the best format for them yet, or if the traits even work that well, but I have whipped up a few more examples for today's rally to find out, so let's see who's racing. The red R5 might have been represented by young Didier Auriol, but his teammate in 1989 was the dominant force that is Mickey Biasion. His effortless trait will likely mean he speeds down the stage away from everyone else, so let's hope he leads the stage on his snow tyres to slow him down a little. The yellow R5 was going to be driven by Hannu Mikkola, a fast and capable driver if everything went well, but he has a retirement rate close to 50%, so it might be all for nothing. It's a bit of a silly trait, however, so the driver's seat today is instead home to Michelle Mouton, who will not go down without a fight. She doesn't lose coast dice with a coast damage token, however she obtains it, but she does have to roll an orange leader die instead of a white die for each token that she has on her snow tyre dashboard, making things a little riskier as the rally goes on and the damage adds up. The purple R5 is an interesting car. In the hands of Mr. Rallycross, Martin Shanker, it was no stranger to success after a few years of competition. But overtaking other cars doesn't really come up in rallying, and so it's going to be driven by Stig Blomqvist. He's an accomplished driver, his skills on the snow on display thanks to his trait changing the colour of the coast dice, but in this one and only season that the RS200 competed in the WRC, it wasn't good, and neither was Stig, hence his low difficulty level. But he'll be on the gravel tyres to see how they compare with the snow tyres of his opponents. Finally, the purple R4 isn't being driven by Bjorn Voldegaard, because he'll only make it look good. No, for it to look a little closer to how I raced this car in Colin McRae Rally, a young and unlucky Ari Vatanen is behind the wheel on his snow tyres. He's pretty much certain not to win, but can he make it through the stage in one piece? This rally was filmed in the midst of a back and forth I had with DrWorm regarding the NPC rules, and as such doesn't reflect what they currently look like. Following along with this game might be a little more difficult than usual, especially with turns and dice results not being shown in full. Don't worry if something isn't shown, you're not missing out on anything important. The key thing to test other than the driver traits was changing surfaces resulting in a change of available dice, and whether an NPC's dice pool for a turn should be governed by rules or by the operator. You might want to pause the video to read the relevant text boxes as and when they come up, but I encourage you to also head over to Board Game Geek and chip in with your own thoughts, especially if you've thought of something that we've overlooked. I go into much more detail over there, but this video is where all the context to those thoughts is to be found. So do be aware that the rules I'm following today were in flux, changed halfway through, and have maybe even already been addressed by the time I'm done talking. So you probably want to treat this rally as an exploration of the NPC rules, especially of the driver traits, rather than a tutorial or a set of competitive times to beat if you wish to recreate this stage. Hopefully it serves as a good example of how rules are pushed to breaking point in an attempt to find a solid set that works. With all that said, let's randomise the starting order and see who gets to tackle Newcastleton first. Here we are at Newcastleton, and the running order is quite a sensible one. Mickey Biasion is going to take things away, followed by Stig Blomqvist, followed by Michelle Mouton, and then once all the R5s are out of the way, the R4 of Ari Vatanen will bring up the rear. So, first thing we need to do is put Mickey Biasion in his right tyres. He's on the snow tyres today, so he's rolling the white coast dice. 1 brake, 1 boost, and 5 gears. He has not lost control. He doesn't need to re-roll anything. He is in the champion car and a difficulty 9. So lots of flexibility for his dice to get him out of tricky situations. And he's going to go all the way up to 5th gear after the first corner. And we go into the second round and do it all over again. He gets to re-roll that die and carry on placing. So he's going to want to slow down for corner coming up. And at the same time, of course, keep the speed up. He has a brake die, so he wants to be there in 4th at the end of his turn. We're going to go braking into 3. Coast through, drop to 2nd, and then boost up to 4th. Next to start is Stig Blomqvist, and he is a snow specialist. So even though he's on his gravel tyres, when he's on the snow, he's going to use the white coast dice instead of the orange leader dice. So he has no brakes. He won't get them until he's on the gravel. And he's also got a fair few re-rolls. So he is a midfielder, which means any blank coast die are getting re-rolled. And so he has earned 1 hazard. And the highest blank gear die is getting re-rolled. That was fine. So he's picked up an extra hazard for the turn, but he can deal with that. He's going to do much the same. Now, he doesn't have brakes, so he will be taking a different approach to this second corner, but he can finish there in 5th gear. Back to Mickey Biasion. He does have a brake die. and a fair few hazards. So he hasn't lost control. He gets to re-roll these 2 gears, but that hasn't helped him. So he's going to have to avoid one of those gears. I don't think he'll be too worried about that. Brake down to second to coast around the outside. And then I think up to fourth is the best. Stig is up next. Stig does not have brakes. And he is going to re-roll this blank coast. And he is going to re-roll this gear die. So he is needing to slow down. He can go 4, 3, coast to coast. And then can't go down to first and then up to second. So he has to go down through second into first. So that was a slow turn for Stig. As we see what Michelle Mouton can do. She is also on snow tyres, so she does have a brake at the minute. And she is in a champion car, so we re-roll the coast die with a hazard. And she is difficulty 8, so the highest 3 gears with hazards get re-rolled. A little bit better for her. Not brilliant, but certainly usable. She's going to do much the same as the cars ahead, get into 5th gear. Next round, and Mickey is coming through some slow corners. He is not losing control, gets to re-roll those 2 dice. So he's in 4th. He can coast, brake down to second, coast again, drop to first, boost up to 3rd gear, and then I think he can come into 4th and then brake again into the hairpin. That will probably be his best course of action. Stig behind is in 1st gear and he hasn't lost control. He's re-rolling that and that. He is going to start in 1st through the inside, 2nd and then into 3rd. Michelle Mouton, she wants to end in 4th gear, much like Mickey in front. Finally, it's Ari Vatanen in the R4. Now he has 3 coast die, no gear 5 and no boost. He's on his snow tyres, which means he does have a brake die. And he is going to re-roll 1 coast with a hazard. There are none. And he's going to re-roll the highest hazard on his gears. There are none. So he is able to get all the way up to 4th gear with no problems. He's going to end 20 seconds further down the track. However, his driver trait is unlucky, which means that at the end of every turn, we're going to roll a white coast die. And if it is a hazard, which it is not, we're going to draw and resolve a shortcut token. So he has escaped excess damage on this occasion. Will that affect him as the race goes on? Next round then, and we have a little bit of a conundrum. What dice pool does Mickey Biasion roll? Now he's coming on to the dirt section, which means he is perhaps more likely to place more dice on dirt than on snow. I think according to his planned trajectory, he was going to brake down to second and then have to coast around the outside. So I think in that sense, he's going to put more dice on snow than on dirt, and he should roll the snow dice pool. So I'm going to do that. That's going to be that pool there. But I suppose it could be possible that he would have to roll a different dice pool instead. So that's something to discuss over on Board Game Geek. He's going to re-roll Gear 5. Maybe you've got some ideas as to how to solve that issue, or if it is an issue at all. So he's going to place Gear 2 there, and then drop to 1st gear boost up to 3rd gear. And let's see, he would be going on to the dirt as the leader with no brakes. So he wouldn't want to go up to 4th unless he could then slow down to 3rd. So he's going to go here in 4th gear. Next up is Stig Blomqvist. He has got no brake, but knew that going into the turn. So he is prepared by just dropping into 2nd like that and coasting through. A drop to 1st and then a boost into 3rd and then a coast puts him there. Michelle Mouton, a breakdown to 2nd, and I think she wants to be up in 4th. And finally, Ari Vartanen is going to come along into the 3rd corner with a flawless set of dice. Going to want to do something like that. He does have brakes, so he could get up to 4th, which means he can brake there and coast through the inside and do something like that and finish in 4th gear. Let's see what his coast die rolls. It is blank. He has again escaped the bad luck. Next round, Mickey Bezion is definitely the leader on the gravel, so he's going to roll 4 gear dice, and that will be gears 1, 2, 4. 2 coasts, which are leaders, and a boost die. There is another point. Maybe he should roll 5 gears like the human players would, and then pick 4 from that. But we are going to keep with just rolling the dice pool themselves to keep things quick and easy. That is something to think about in future, however. So let's roll these and see what happens. And we re-roll this one because of his championship car. And he has a full set of dice. So we're not going to need to show off his trait going through the shortcut. There are no hazards on his dice, but we can definitely simulate that. If we were to place a 3 here, and if the 2 were to accidentally be a hazard and get placed on the shortcut, that would normally double the hazards for an NPC, but in this case, with an effortless trait, it just counts as the 1 hazard. And then what we can do is speed through the corner. And do we want to end all the way over here in 1st gear? Probably not good for speed. We've got no brakes, so they would have to be in 4th over here somewhere. But they can't get to 4th without a boost die. So a turn like that is what we're going to do. Didn't need to go through the shortcut. I think there's probably a way to go around the outside instead. But as we are exploring the driver traits, we can tinker with things here and there. Next up, Stig Blomqvist. He is re-rolling these and escapes adding any extra hazards. So his intent was to coast around the outside. He's coming onto the dirt where his tyres will actually give him some brakes, so he can afford to go up through the gears without worrying. And that will mean he can get up to 4th gear there. And that'll give him options of either going around the outside or through the shortcut. Michelle Mouton is up next. She wants to break down to 2nd gear, and with her dice, that is easily done. Coast through, drop to 1st, boost up to 3rd, and emerge in 4th gear. Ari Vatanen is going to finish the round off. He can get up to 4th, so he might as well. However, he is unlucky. Is he going to roll a hazard? He is. He is going to resolve a shortcut token. Now, most of these are, of course, going to be okay. It's the coast die damage that Ari is worried about, but he doesn't get any this time, so his luck holds out as we go into the next round, with Mickey Biasion. He's in 4th gear. He's going to be on the gravel leader dice pool. So we're going to have no brakes, but he is not worried. He's going to start in 3rd, drop to 2nd, coast through, and then coast out and boost up to 4th gear on the snow. Stig Blomqvist is finally able to make use of a brake die, but he does have to re-roll some dice first. Gets away without adding any extra hazards, so he's going to break down to 2nd gear. Could go through the shortcut, but he doesn't need to. He can go around the outside, and I think he can go into the sliding spaces and emerge in 5th, as Michelle Mouton is going to carry on. She needs to break down to 2nd gear. That's 1 hazard. Coasts through. When she goes onto gravel, she will have no brake. So she wants to end there in 4th. And finally, Ari Vatanen, he's going to break down to 2nd gear, coast all the way through, and emerge in 4th gear out the other side. Is he unlucky? And he has a blank coast die. Next round, Mickey Biasion is back on his preferred tyres, and I think he has enough space to get through the corner in 1st gear. He's in 4th, so if he breaks down to 2nd, drops to 1st, boosts to 3. Those are the only 2 hazards of his dice pool. He can then get up to 5th. Stig Blomqvist behind him on the gravel tyres. The same set of dice, but lots of re-rolls according to difficulty. He once again escapes excess hazards. He does have to place 1 in order to then break down to 2nd and coast through. Now he is on snow. He can get up to 5th at some point. He'll need a boost die from 3rd gear to do that. Does he have the brakes on the snow? No. So does he want to get there in 5th? No. So can we push his dice back with slide spaces? Yes. Up next is Michelle Mouton. She does not have a brake on the dirt. She's re-rolling a couple of dice. Gets rid of 1 hazard. So her ability, her trait is to ignore coast die damage and replace the dice with a different color rather than eliminating the dice entirely. So she can go through shortcuts with even less of a risk than everyone else. I'm going to put her in 4th gear over here, like that, and I will explain my reasoning on the next turn. So she's going to end there in 4th, and we're going to draw a shortcut token. Oh look, she's drawn a coast die damage, so that goes on her dashboard as normal, but according to her driver trait, she does not remove dice, but for each token pulled, roll 1 orange leader die instead of 1 white coast die. So she has a little bit of a harder time going forward on certain surfaces, and I will explain that as time goes on. However, first up is Ari Vatanen on his snow tyres for the last time in a short while, and he will roll that set of dice. He is going to re-roll just the 1 coast hazard, but that's good for him. So he's going to break down to 2nd gear, coast on through. Does he have brakes on the gravel? No, he doesn't. So he's also going to want to think about where he finishes his turn. Somewhere like that is the best course of action. Has he rolled a hazard? He has not. He escapes again. Next round, Mickey Biasion needs to slow down so that he can brake to second, drop to first in order to boost up to third. Stig has no brake dice, but remember his snow specialism gives him white coast die instead of the orange leader dice that the dice pool would have given him. So he's going to re-roll these dice for his difficulty. No changes there. What can he do with no brakes? He needs to slow down. He is in fifth gear. So fourth, third, and then second around the outside is the best that he can do. Not the best for the speed. Hopefully he has set himself up for the next corner at least. Now then, Michelle Mouton. So we have a number of things to discuss once again. Now, her intent was to finish here in fourth gear. She would have no brakes. And so normally, if we were to have her on the gravel dashboard, she would lose control by going into a gear 2 corner in a higher speed. However, one suggestion going forward is that you pick the dice pool of the surface that has the most spaces over the next 7 spaces. And you could argue that this tile only has 1, 2, 3 dirt spaces. Or if you count the corner as 1 space, it has 1, 2 spaces, and therefore there is more snow in the next 7 spaces. So on that logic, I am going to say that Michelle Mouton is rolling her snow dice pool, and that does give her a brake die. Now, she has taken damage, so one of her coast die does turn over to the leader dice, and then her dice pool is set, and she can use that however she pleases, with the re-rolls as necessary. Gets rid of absolutely nothing, I think. But she can use that to carry on with her turn. So, as it happens, the brake die was a hazard, but it does get her through the corner, and she can use that coast to carry on out the other side. She could then go at least up to fifth. What space can she be in? She would be on snow with brakes, so she can get into that space. But is that how we should have rolled the NPCs? I will leave that for you to discuss as we go into Ari Vartanen's turn. He is going to have to take the shortcut and coast as far as he can in second gear. That shortcut token is okay, and the unlucky die says that it is fine. Next round, Mickey Biasion. Does he want to break down to first? Probably. And then up to third gear. Stig Blomqvist behind him has a slow corner coming up. So with no brakes, he can't really end any higher than third. Michelle Mouton. She can end in fifth, and there's plenty of room to break down for the next turn. And finally, Ari Vartanen, who is going on to the snow. So again, there's going to be more spaces on snow, so he should roll the snow set of dice. He's not going to need the brake that it adds, but we have rolled it anyway. He's in second gear. He is going to drop to first and then try and get all the way into fourth as soon as he can. However, is he unlucky? He's going to roll the coast die. It's a hazard. He's going to draw a shortcut token. There are only 5 in this bag that would affect him, and he has drawn one. So he is unlucky. That was not looking into the bag on this occasion. Through no fault of his own, he has found his car breaking apart underneath him. Going forward, that will cost him some distance. It looks like Mickey Biasion is going on to the dirt as the leader. He could go third, second, coast, boost to fourth, and that would be his best course of action. And again, with his driver trait, if there were hazards on this boost die or the gear 4 die, they would be placed on a water hazard. The NPC would normally double, but the effortless trait just keeps the single hazard instead. Stig Blomqvist is on the snow. He's got no brakes, so he's going to have to end in third gear. Hot on his heels is Michelle Mouton. Can she end in third? Yes, as she desperately hopes she can find a way past. Otherwise, she's going to get caught up. Let's see what happens with Ari Vatanen. All he can do is come out in fourth gear. Mickey Biasion. He doesn't have any brakes, so he's going to need to finish here in fourth gear. Stig. He wants to drop to second around the outside and ideally make as much progress as he can. He's going to end in fourth gear. Michelle Mouton is screaming at him to get out the way. Ari Vatanen, did I roll unlucky on his last turn? I can't remember if I did. At the end of this turn, we will definitely check. If he is unlucky, he has escaped on this occasion. All the way out front is Mickey Biasion. There is just more dirt than snow. I am going to re-roll that die for him. He's in fourth gear. He slides in third to drift around the outside in second, and then he can boost up to gear 4 over the jump to get some extra space. Once again, the jump is a track feature, so if either of these dice were to be hazards, they would normally be doubled, but with the effortless trait, they are not. Stig Blomqvist is going to be on the dirt dice pool, and the dirt dice pool gives him a break die that he so desperately wants. So he's going to roll all of these dice. He's going to re-roll those, and that picks up a hazard. So he's going to break down to second gear in order to coast through the corners and a fifth gear finish. If I have ruled that Stig is on gravel, I should also rule that Michelle Mouton is on gravel, so she does not have a break. And so we're going to roll those dice and re-roll these dice. So she can go third, second, coast through, and boost up to gear 4 to keep pace. And my stack of gear 4 time cards is rapidly depleting. Ari Vatanen at the back in a drift in gear 3. We are still going. Newcastleton is longer than it looks. Mickey Biasion can get there in fourth. Stig is on gravel tyres. He has to break down to third gear, and that is 2 hazards. He has to coast through and unfortunately end his turn. He can boost up to 5 in the water hazard, and importantly for Michelle Mouton, has moved aside to allow some space for an overtake. She would have to do it in 5th gear and now takes turn order from the Ford, going through the Ford. Ari Vatanen has another 4th gear finish. Mickey Biasion is trying to go through some shortcuts up to 4th in the drift. Michelle Mouton has turn order, and she loses control in 3rd gear on an orange tile, and that 1 damage token is a green flag. She can be passed by the cars behind, and first car behind is Stig Blomqvist. Ari Vatanen is up next, and he would have to go the long way around the corner and then, in fact, end his turn in the water hazard. Next up is Mickey Biasion. He is going to not have brakes, so he's going to go 3, 2 around the outside and boost into gear 4. Stig is on his gravel dice pool over the jump in 4th, and then he would have brakes, so he could end in 5th gear on the dirt. Next along the track is Michelle Mouton. She is on gravel tyres, so she will not have a brake die. And thanks to her never give up trait, she is on mixed coast dice. So let's see what she rolls. No loss of control, but she will need to get rid of a few hazards with a reroll. She can't go over the jump in 5th gear because she is blocked by Stig up ahead. So the best she can do is to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Ari Vatanen at the back is on his gravel tyres, which do not give him a brake die, and he has a Gear 4 finish. Next round, and I desperately hope Mickey Biasion can cross the line, because that would give me some of his Gear 4 time cards back so that I can give them to the other players. He has not lost control, and he's got a full set of dice to work with. 3, coast, coast, 2, and then boost 4. He is a couple of spaces away from the finish line. Stig Blomqvist is in 5th gear. He is on the right tyres for the job at this point of the race. He could brake to go through the shortcut. That would be 2 hazards for the turn. So instead, he's going to brake down to 3rd, to drop into 2nd, and then coast through like that. And that would force Michelle Mouton through the shortcut. Michelle doesn't care about that. She could stay in 4th, drop to 3rd through the shortcut, and then coast, and then boost 5. And the shortcut token is a -1 speed limit. So Stig has gotten through the corner at just the right time, only to see Michelle zoom past him through the shortcut. Ari Vatanen has his gravel dice pool, which is unfortunate for him as it doesn't give him brakes, and he is in 4th gear. So whatever he rolls, he is going to lose control by overspeeding through the corner. Doesn't pick up any damage, however. He is unlucky, doubly so perhaps, but his unlucky die does not show a hazard. A careless error on his part, or indeed on my part, for not knowing what dice pool he was going to go into. Final round for Mickey Biasion as he rolls a bunch of dice to cross the finish line. It is Michelle Mouton's turn. She's on the dirt. She does not have a brake die. She is going to want to go through these shortcuts. She's in 5th gear, so with no brakes, she's going to slide into 4th, drop into 3rd through one shortcut. She can coast through. In fact, if she uses the hazard there, then she doesn't have to double it on the next shortcut. As it happens, it was her only hazard, so either way, doesn't matter. And then she can boost up to 5th gear. Stig boosts up to 3. He can sit there, wait for Michelle to move ahead of him. Ari Vatanen then, he can't go over the jump in 4th gear. Can't get there. He does want to end his turn in 4th gear though. Michelle Mouton has no brakes. She's in 5th gear and unfortunately only end her turn in 2nd gear. We will see what Stig can do behind. He could just play things safe, but if he wants to keep his speed up, he might as well try to end in 5th gear at some point. Finally, Ari Vatanen, very close to losing control. Maybe he should have pulled aside to use his spare tyre card. However, that's not what's happened, so he's going to use what he's got. He's going through a shortcut because the corner is unusable to him, and he might as well go for distance, which means going through another shortcut, and then he can't place his final dice for hazard limits. That shortcut will double that Gear 2 die into 2 hazards. Can Michelle finish the race? From 2nd gear, she might as well drop down to 1st in order to get through as many spaces as she can. That will put her 1 space before the finish line in 5th gear, and that is always unfortunate when it happens. As we see what the Stig can do behind, to drop down to 2nd and come out in 3rd and boost up to 5th gear. Ari Vatanen is in 2nd gear. He can drop to first to avoid the shortcuts. He could get all the way up to fourth in that space to keep his time down, but then he would only be ending in second on the next turn, so it's probably better for him to end in third. Michel Mouton does not lose control over the finish line. What can Stig do behind? He has lots of blank dice to work with, so he is going to coast through the shortcut. He can break down to third in order to drop to second, boost up to fourth, and cross the line in fifth. We are just waiting for Ari Vatanen to cross the line now, and he is going to limp home with the dice available to him. He has got a full set to work with though, so he can drop to second, coast on through, and emerge in fourth gear. To end his turn, he's going to check to see if he is unlucky, which he isn't. And on the next turn, we are going to roll the same set of dice, re-roll for a full set. And what can he do? He can only go 3, coast, coast, 4. Another check to see if he has been unlucky, which he hasn't. And cross the finish line fourth on the day, and probably fourth in time. Let's find out as we tot up the results and see where we go from here. I think the final times are as follows. They might be off by the odd second, given how many tokens fell on the floor during the course of the rally. The enforced leader dice didn't faze Mickey Biasion in the slightest as he cruised home in 5 minutes 46, and he'd be even quicker if he were allowed to roll his full set of gears, which I think he should have been able to do. In second place, ruining her loss of control and all the time spent stuck behind Stig, was Michel Mouton in 6 minutes 14. Absolutely could have given Mickey a proper challenge otherwise. Stig Blomqvist finished in a distant 7 minutes 29 in comparison, and as expected, the unlucky Ari Vatanen brings home the R4 in 8 minutes and 7 seconds. If you've managed to follow along with the rules, congratulations. I can be quite verbose at times. Again, I encourage you to air your views over on Board Game Geek, where you can read through my thought process regarding them in even more detail. There's more to explore with these NPCs, and knowing how you use the rules helps me to know what to show off to others in future. Like DrWorm, I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of motorsports. I've got 2 books on rallying, and one of them is in Swedish. I brought it for the pictures, not for the title. But there's a lot of resources out there for us all to make educated guesses about which traits a driver might be best described with. I'm sure some of you don't even need to guess. So what do you think about driver traits? Are you itching to get them to your table to put some more life into your NPCs? Have you got any ideas as to how many traits a driver needs, or how many is too many? Do you think keeping things simple with the snapshot approach seen here is useful, or do you just want to pull out a Loeb or an Ogier driver card, pick a difficulty and get going? Let's not forget about the GT side of things either. What would a Vettel or a Buemi driver card look like? Or if you prefer anyone not called Sebastian, well, just about anyone else from whatever motorsport you can think of. The sky is the limit with these NPC rules. Don't believe me? Here's Team Teddy's Mr. Bean for your green GT4. Hopefully you're not chosen as his rival.